Hey everyone, welcome to the next edition of a Fireside Chat. I'm Rick. I'm glad to welcome you into my home. As you can see, I'm flying solo tonight. Heather's not able to be here. Rest assured, everything is okay. But I'm going to fly solo. I realize I'm far less interesting when I'm by myself. I enjoy this more when Heather's next to me. But I'm kind of excited to share with you what I want to share with you tonight because it's been helpful to me, and I believe that it could be helpful to you. Let me ask you this question. How are you doing? How are your friends doing? How's your family doing? We are in the middle of fascinating times. We are in a history-shaping moment. This is the kind of year that people are going to read about for many years to come. Not only are we gripped, many of us are heartbroken. There has never been a time in my life where so many important things have stacked up on top of one another all at once. And we're going to talk about, hey, what's the appropriate response to really loving our neighbors well in the reality of a global pandemic. We're going to continue to have conversations about what are our next steps, what do we do in the face of racial injustice and hurt. We're going to have those conversations. Those are going to be posted on social media. Those are going to be included in our Connect articles. Those are going to be woven into messages that we have. Those are going to be a part of videos that we publish. They're going to be part of conversations you have and life groups that you're a part of. I hope you're a part of a life group. You don't want to miss out on that. But tonight, I don't want to talk about what's our next step in those things. I want to talk about how are you doing? What do you need? Earlier today, I got to share with some folks something that I've been thinking about, and it's this. It's something that I call transition fatigue. Change is a normal part of life. You can't thrive without embracing change. And yet, there is a point where you reach your max on your ability to really endure change. There is a point where it stacks up one on top of another, and you hit a wall. I call that transition fatigue. And it's really where you are mentally, emotionally, spiritually exhausted, and you really begin to feel it physically. And it's not because you've been working hard physically, but all of those things are felt physically. And we know that we're experiencing transition fatigue when one, two, or three things happen. And they can happen in any order, but typically when one, two, or these three things begin to show up, we know that we're experiencing transition fatigue. Number one, we lose our ability to have perspective. We lose sight of the big picture. We lose sight of how we fit into the big picture, and we begin to see things really in the context of how they hurt us, how they inconvenience us, how they make our lives harder. We really tend to fixate on the negative and on the hard and on the difficult, and we don't see how that fits in to the bigger picture. Another thing that we lose is our ability to have patience, our ability to really go at another person's speed, our ability to endure the inconvenience that other people bring. And touching back on perspective, we've lost sight of the fact that we bring inconvenience to other people too. So not only do we lose perspective, not only do we lose patience, the third thing is we lose empathy. And let me just acknowledge that these three things, perspective and patience and empathy, they might be different expressions of the same thing, but we lose our ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, to see it how they see it, and to choose to feel with them whatever they're feeling. If they're laughing, we lose our ability to laugh with them. If they're crying, we lose our ability to cry with them. So let me ask you, how are you doing when it comes to perspective? How are you doing when it comes to patience? How are you doing when it comes to empathy? How's your spouse doing? How are your good friends doing? How are your kids doing? And if your spouse, if your kids, if your friends, if your neighbor noticed that you were slipping in those areas, how would you want them to respond to you? And that's really a great guide and how you and I can respond to them. And it's my hope that we could give each other grace, that we could recognize that for the past few months, there's been change and unexpected change stacked up one on top of the other. Not everybody has the same capacity. Maybe you're wired for even more. Maybe you're not. And if you're not, that doesn't mean that anything's wrong with you. It simply means that you're fatigued. The most important solution we have is to go to the one who really does love us, the one who understands us the most. And he understands us the most because he made us in his image. He knows how we are intended to work. As a matter of fact, a life of thriving is found in him. It's spending time with him, allowing him to change us from the inside out. And it's okay to be gracious and to be patient with ourselves. Because if we don't have the ability to be gracious and patient with ourselves, how in the world are we ever going to be gracious and patient with other people? It's okay. So let me again ask you, how are you doing with empathy, with patience, and perspective? If you find that you're experiencing some transition fatigue, it's time to slow down. It's time to acknowledge it. It's time to build in a little margin. It's time to acknowledge it out loud to people who love you, who can help you with that. And most importantly, it's time to go to the one who made you in his image, who loves you, and to pour out your heart to him. I'm sure many of you have been doing this, but it's during this season that I've decided to really focus in on the Psalms, because just the honesty which David sang and the honesty with which he prayed, it's a roadmap and it's a source of confidence for me to be able to pray and to worship God in the same way. I hope that's an encouragement to you. Next week, Heather will be back with me. I hope you have a great week. Thanks so much.